A few years ago, if someone had told me that I would become a data engineer in Finland,
I probably would not have believed them. At the time, my life looked completely different, and nothing suggested that I would eventually end up working in the data field.
I had just moved to a completely new country, I was trying to adapt to a new culture, and I was still figuring out what I wanted to do with my career. I originally moved to Finland to pursue a PhD degree. Research had always interested me, and I genuinely thought that academia might become my long-term career path. I enjoyed learning new things, solving problems, and contributing to knowledge through research.
However, after spending about 1 year in the PhD program, I slowly realized that the path I had chosen was not really aligned with the future I wanted for myself.
One of the biggest challenges was that I was living in a completely new environment. Everything was different from what I was used to. The culture was different, the language was different, and the job market worked differently from my home country. Even though people in Finland generally speak very good English, I still struggled with communication. My English was not as strong as it is today, and I often felt uncomfortable expressing myself during meetings, interviews, and professional conversations. At the same time, I quickly discovered that having experience from another country does not automatically guarantee opportunities in a new one. I had previous experience in software development, machine learning, and programming. I had worked on different projects and built technical skills over many years. However, when employers looked at my profile, they did not necessarily see somebody with local experience.
Instead, they saw a newcomer without Finnish work history, without local references, and without a professional network.
During my first year in Finland, I started applying for jobs while continuing my PhD studies. Initially, I thought finding a position would be relatively straightforward, because I already had technical skills and previous experience.
I was completely wrong. The reality was much more difficult than I expected. I submitted application after application and waited for responses that often never came.
Sometimes I received an automatic rejection email only a few days later. Sometimes I reached the interview stage and felt optimistic about my chances, only to receive another rejection message afterward. There were periods when I started questioning whether I had made the right decision by moving to Finland in the first place. The difficult part about rejection is not receiving one rejection. The difficult part is receiving many rejections over a long period of time. After 10 rejections, you still feel motivated. After 20 rejections, you start doubting yourself. After 30 rejections, you begin questioning your abilities and your future. It becomes very easy to believe that everyone else is progressing while you remain stuck in the same place. Fortunately, I decided to approach the situation differently. Instead of viewing every rejection as proof that I was not good enough, I started treating each rejection as feedback. After every interview, I tried to identify something that I could improve. Sometimes it was my communication skills. Sometimes it was my technical knowledge. Sometimes it was simply the way I presented my experience and achievements. Slowly, I started improving my CV, I updated project descriptions, I changed how I explained my experience. I learned how to communicate my skills more effectively. Every application became slightly better than the previous one. Every interview taught me something valuable that I could use in the next interview. Eventually, after many applications and many disappointing results, I received an offer for a software developer position. Looking back, that first opportunity changed everything. The salary was important, of course.
But the most valuable thing was the local experience that came with the job.
For the first time, I was gaining professional experience inside the Finnish technology industry. For the next 3.5 years, I worked as a software developer. During those years, I learned far more than I ever expected. I learned how software teams operate in real companies.
I learned how to collaborate with colleagues from different backgrounds.
I learned how to communicate technical ideas more clearly and confidently. Most importantly, I learned how to solve real business problems instead of only academic problems. Those years also helped me build confidence. When you move to a new country, confidence is something that takes time to rebuild. Every successful project, every positive feedback session, and every challenge you overcome slowly convinces you that you belong there. After a while, I stopped feeling like an outsider trying to survive. I started feeling like a professional who could contribute and create value. Then something happened that many people in the technology industry experienced recently. Layoffs started affecting companies across different sectors.
Suddenly, job security became much less certain than before.
Like many others, I found myself facing uncertainty about the future and thinking about what my next career move should be. At that point, I had never worked as a data engineer before. In fact, I did not have the title data engineer anywhere on my resume. However, when I looked closely at my background, I realized that many of my previous experiences overlapped with data engineering responsibilities. I had worked with databases. I had worked with Python. I had experience in machine learning and data processing. I understood software development principles and cloud technologies. The problem was that I lacked experience with some of the tools that companies expected data engineers to know. Every job description seemed to mention technologies such as Spark, Kafka, data pipelines, streaming systems, cloud platforms, and distributed processing frameworks.
Some of these tools were familiar to me while others were completely new.
At first, this looked like another obstacle. Then I realized that I had faced similar situations many times before.
I did not need to become an expert overnight. I simply needed to learn faster than before and continuously improve my understanding. So I started studying while applying for positions.
Every job description became a learning opportunity. If a company mentioned Spark, I spent time learning Spark.
If another company mentioned Kafka, I started learning Kafka.
If a position required knowledge of data warehousing or cloud technologies, I spent evenings reading documentation, watching tutorials, and building small projects. Many people think that learning happens before you apply for jobs. In my case, learning happened during the application process itself. Every interview revealed another gap in my knowledge. Every technical discussion showed me another area where I needed improvement. Instead of becoming discouraged, I used that information to guide my learning. Whenever I learned something meaningful, I updated my CV. Whenever I completed a project or gained a better understanding of a technology, I added it to my portfolio. Slowly, my profile started looking more and more aligned with the positions I was targeting. Of course, the rejections continued. I received many more rejections than offers. There were interviews where I performed poorly because I lacked experience. There were interviews where another candidate was simply more qualified. There were interviews where everything seemed to go well, yet I still received a rejection email afterward. However, something important was happening behind the scenes. With every rejection, I was becoming better.
With every interview, my communication improved. With every technical question, my knowledge expanded.
With every application, my confidence increased. The person applying after the 50th rejection was significantly stronger than the person who submitted the first application. Most people only see the final result. They see the new job title, the successful transition, or the promotion. What they rarely see are the dozens of failed attempts that happened beforehand. They do not see the evenings spent studying after work. They do not see the self-doubt, the uncertainty, or the continuous effort required to keep moving forward. Eventually, all those small improvements started compounding. The skills I had built as a developer, combined with my growing knowledge of data engineering tools and systems, finally created new opportunities. Companies began viewing my background differently. Instead of seeing somebody without direct data engineering experience, they started seeing somebody whose previous experiences could be transferred into the role.
That is how I eventually became a data engineer. Not because I followed a perfect plan, not because I had the ideal education, not because everything happened smoothly.
I became a data engineer because I kept learning, adapting, and improving whenever I encountered obstacles. Every rejection became a lesson. Every challenge became an opportunity to grow. Every setback pushed me to become slightly better than I was before. If there is one lesson I learned from this entire journey, it is that careers are rarely linear. Most successful transitions happen gradually. You learn one skill at a time. You improve one interview at a time. You build one connection at a time. Eventually, those small improvements create opportunities that once seemed impossible. 5 years ago, I arrived in Finland as a PhD student who was uncertain about the future. Today, I work as a data engineer in a country that once felt completely unfamiliar. The journey was much harder than I expected, but it was also much more rewarding than I imagined. And if my story proves anything, it is that starting from zero does not mean staying at zero. It simply means that your next chapter has not been written yet.
If you like this video and this kind of editing, please let me know and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Bye.